Hello everyone, it's Martha Novak. Novak now, really. We're so glad that you're with us today, all of you old folks and all of you new folks. We appreciate your support of the show. This is Real Talk with Martha Novak, and we're talking today, we're having a discussion about money. A lot of different points. Now, I've done shows on money before. I've certainly done shows on creating the life you want and things like that. However, this is a very important show that I hope will cover some other topics and put them in perspective for us all. Before we begin, let me say that the guest calling number is 347-850-1647. If you have any questions for me, that number is going to get you live and on the air with me. 347-850-1647. If you just want to listen to the show, please go, and you probably are already on one of these, blogtalkradio.com or Facebook Live, or you may go to my website. We've tried to provide real easy access to the show, Martha Novak, NOVAK.com, and under radio shows, there are a couple of buttons that will get you into one of the live feeds. That does not put you on the air. That's just to listen. We are delighted to have you with us. Now, we have a lot to say today, so I'm going to start off with a prayer to get us all in the same place, and we'll launch in, okay? Now, keep in mind, too, that I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes my dear clientele translates for me when they're on the air, and I appreciate that very much. If you don't understand something that I'm saying, if you have questions, by all means write me. You can write me through the website, marthaburgess.com, Martha Novak, NOVAK.com. I always have to spell that last name because there are lots of ways to spell it. And you can write me through that website, and I'll be delighted to return your comments and questions, okay? Dear God, thank you so much for the ability to be together, to come together as we are right now, in our love for you and our desire to know more and to figure out a better and better life and living experience and the joy of it all. We open ourselves now to hearing whatever the next level of our experience is. We ask with all our hearts that we open to knowing nothing, for it is the you through us that knows it all, and we're open to that divine information beyond what we think we know, beyond what we should do, beyond everything. You are there, ever abiding, and there for us to move on in deeper and deeper ways. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. And we say this prayer now in your name and in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show today. And so it is. Guys, I want to tell you that this has been a rather harried morning. My printer broke down and several other things. So one of the things I forgot to do, and I think I've remembered everything so far, is I did not close the door. So you're hearing a little whining puppy. Hang on 2 seconds. Let me be right back with you. As a mother, I am distracted by a whining puppy. So wanted to get that door closed. All right, let's talk about money. If you'd like to manifest more money and have been unsuccessful doing so, or even moderately successful, but the flow has dried up or stopped, you're probably suspecting something that I want to talk about today. You might want to have a pad and pencil with you because I've got about 12 points to make. And I want you to consider every one. Certainly, the more aware you are of yourself, the more these points will matter to you, and the more these points might ring true for you. To generate money, actual money, and by the way, not what it can buy, because you can generate things without money. One of the reasons that we're not very competent in generating just money is because money doesn't mean a lot by itself unless we've got issues around it. It's extremely important, though, because it's the currency of real life. But it's a subject with a lot of elements. And we're going to talk about those elements today, because you can be doing one thing very well and have some other elements that are lacking and not be doing that well. And it all fits together as a package, you see? And this is the problem. It is a complicated subject, and it has a lot of roads to it. We're going to talk about many of the ones today. Let's start with some of the bigger topics first. My question to you, and I think some of these questions are important to consider, so if you want to write them down, and then for you to contemplate later, I think they're important. Are you willing to generate money? Are you willing to generate money? Are you willing to do what it takes? Are you willing to expend whatever amount of effort it takes to make money? If your answer is no to any of these questions, then we have some fundamental issues for you to look at. You must be willing to generate and apply energy to making money. And this came up this week. In fact, it's come up for the last 2 weeks with clients of mine. I found one of them perfectly unwilling to generate money. She didn't want to. She didn't want to expend the effort. It isn't the money. She wants the money, but she's not willing to expend the effort. Isn't that interesting? She's learned a long time ago from her mama, who was extremely critical and dictatorial, that expending the effort just didn't bring her any rewards, any kind of effort on her behalf. So she doesn't want to do it now. She's going to have to get over that before she knows what to do with this. Another client of mine wasn't putting much energy into making money. So we are going to be talking about that too. And that client a little later on. Okay? Thank you for that sweet note that just went by. I appreciate it. So, last week, I had some clients, not the one I've just mentioned, in need of money. I'm supposed to help you make it, by the way. So we often talk about money here. So I challenged these two people who came in together, and I really already knew the answer. But I asked them, how much do you think about money? Now, I said, not how much you think about the lack of money, but how much you think about money itself. And the answer, always the answer, is not much. I pointed out that this is a fundamental problem. I say that to you. It's a fundamental problem. If you communicate with the universe about what you want through the energy you give to the subject, and this is a truism, all right? You, in essence, are saying that you are not interested in accumulating wealth. You're saying that by your not having any energy in the making of money, in thinking about money. You have to think about money. Again, not the lack of it, because you're already getting that. If you're worried about the lack of money all the time, that's what you see, lack, and you're trying to generate wealth from lack, you're getting exactly what you want, exactly what the energy is doing. You're getting the lack of money. You have to accumulate money from a larger part of you that knows the abundance of God, and the abundance of God is money. I mean, it's just one of the ways, just like the beautiful sunset outside, right? We're not having the sunset right now, however. Okay, now to think about money, to do this well, you have to clean up the way you even think and talk about money. Be precise. Distinguish the thought about money from a thought about the lack of it. The law of attraction we hear so much about is working for you when you think about the lack of money, because you're getting back what your investment of energy is in. Now, guys, I'm not talking about an obsession. You can obsess about the lack of money. You can obsess about money and the abundance of money. We're trying to clean this up. I'm just talking about you're giving attention to money. For example, look in your wallet right now. Pull out $1. Do you think that's beautiful artwork? Somebody drew that. Somebody drew that. It's perfectly beautiful. It's got all sorts of interesting spiritual symbols all over it. Do you have that piece of art crumbled up in your wallet? Is everything in a logical order, one denomination to the other? Is it cared for? I mean, even this, guys, is the care of money itself, without all the trappings of it in terms of the issues around it. We can talk about those issues. But the basic care of money starts in how you treat $1. Starts in how you treat the cents that you have in your pocketbook. I've known a lot of people that refuse to bend down and pick up a penny that's lying on the street. Why? That penny is part of a greater whole. Everything should be cared about, appreciated, and part of something else, you see? Just as we are, by the way. It's all a metaphor. Looking to go from one place to another always requires energy. Thought is energy. Feelings are energy. Action is energy. And you have to generate energy to change. You cannot go from chaos, whatever your level of chaos is. And to me, chaos is just change, but we put the negative thing on chaos because of our childhood, because of issues. Hello, Kathy. I'm so glad that you joined us. From Missouri. Well, hello. The Show Me State. I'm glad that you're here with us today. Whenever you go from chaos, whatever your level of chaos is, and I was saying we put the negative spin on chaos. Chaos is just change, right? And hello, Sheila from Wisconsin. Oh, darlings, I'm thrilled to hear from all of you all from really not so far away, because anybody who's listening to a show on consciousness is certainly a spiritual brother and sister in some way, because this just isn't, I think, for the masses, you know, so good for you. I'm so glad that you all are with us today, and it's wonderful to hear from you. So we don't go from chaos to new order, and by the way, this is the change of life, right? And in this case, we're talking about money being new order. If you're not willing to expend the necessary energy to get you there. It's like being in Valdosta, Georgia. By the way, nothing against Valdosta, Georgia. It's just hot there this time of year, okay? But it's like being in Valdosta, Georgia, and wishing and fantasizing about being in Rockport, Maine, where it's cooler. Some people are still angry they're in Valdosta instead of getting on a bus or a plane or a train and getting up to Rockport, Maine. Doesn't make much sense, and yet this is the way we do it emotionally. We'll be very upset about our patterns or about being poor or about being in a place we don't want to do, and we rail against it and we fantasize out of it, but we don't get on the bus, train, or plane. We don't move. We don't expend the energy of change, of growth. And by the way, what is always inherent in change and growth is opportunity. Opportunity. And that's what you're heading for. Hello, Jerry. Hello. I'm so glad that you're listening today. All right. That said, the number one point I'm making here is you have to be willing to expend the energy to make money. If you're not, you simply have some work to do on yourself. If you're not, what I'm trying to always do in a show like this is ask some questions that you might not have asked yourself. So here we are. It doesn't mean you're good or bad or indifferent. It doesn't mean that I am. It just simply means these are thoughts to consider and answer honestly for yourself. There may be a problem in your unwillingness to expend the energy to make some money. I think this comes out in a lot of ways. Here's a way I always see. A lot of people come to me and they'll say, I don't know what to do. Help me brainstorm about what to do. And I'm a good brainstormer. You know, I've been a corporate coach in addition to a spiritual coach, in addition to, it's all kind of one thing for me because it's all energy, right? So when I'm coaching people, go to the levels of energy and talk about the things I'm supposed to talk about. And so I'll say, well, have you thought about this? Why don't we use your talents this way? Have you thought about this? And they constantly, if they're of this frame of mind, they'll constantly say, I can't do that because of this. Oh, I can't go there because of this. Oh, I don't want to do that because of this, or this, or this, or this, or this. And they've knocked down the idea before they've even entertained it, and certainly before they've even tried. Guys, we have to get the issues out of the way so you can act on some of these ideas, so you can investigate them, so you can go a little further, right? So what I want to put on the table is certainly, don't be a naysayer about expending the energy, about investigating things, about seeing if you'd like to do that. For heaven's sakes, go for it. Go for it. The interesting thing is once we start moving, the energy of God really uses that. You see that it's really important to set a direction and to go for it. Then doors and windows are going to open and close that are going to lead you in certain directions. And what happens with a lot of people that don't have a real strong sense of self and don't feel like that their path is a spiritual path, and by the way it is, we're spiritual beings in physical form, not the other way around. And finding work and finding wealth and finding it's a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual activity. We have to be in alignment with this in all of those bodies in all of those ways. And many people will shut those doors, and when the doors shut and open and close, they'll either shut the door themselves, like the example I just said of saying, no, I can't possibly do that, or when the doors open and close, they'll say, oh, see, that proves that I'm not supposed to go in that direction. It's a sign from God. Maybe it's just a sign from God that that particular venue is closed right then, and maybe there's another one. Look around. Keep the energy going. You see? For this, you have to have a strong sense of self. It can't be personalized. Oh, I'm not supposed to do this. Well, hi, Lisa. So glad that you joined us this morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Loving you too. I appreciate hearing from you like that. So we have to have a sense of self. This isn't personal. This isn't the universe saying, well, there's a sign here that says you should give up, that this isn't the venue for you, that this isn't. No, you're not looking for signs. You're actually looking for something beyond science. You know what you're looking for? You're looking to go with the voice of God. So if that door closes, look around, see what else. Say, I'm really drawn to this subject. What else could I do? Is there another class to take? Is there another job to apply for? Is there something that matches my gifts and talents and abilities more? Let's keep going. Is there something fun to do that's an auxiliary thing for me to develop? I have a very dear client of mine who's very OCD, right? I told her to go take an improvisation class. Let's go improvise. You can't be OCD and improvise. OCD is, of course, very judgmental, and it has to be very controlled and strict, right? And in improvisation class, you have to think in the moment. You have to go off what they're saying. Everything that is said is truth, you see. You have to improvise. You have to think in the moment. Well, life is that way. It's a divine improvisation. So what if that class closes? We'll find another one. Doesn't mean you shouldn't develop that characteristic. You see? Good. That's all. A lot of points in that. My first point. My first point, going back to the point in there, was be willing to expend the energy. Point number 2. We've got to clean up the way we think about money. Is each thought you think about the lack of money or about money itself? Money itself doesn't really have any emotion with it. Do you understand? Money's just money. The emotion that you're adding, whether I'm going to make millions, that's a fantasy. Not going to happen because it's a fantasy. Doesn't mean that in reality you're not capable of that. Sure, but not in fantasy. You remember, in fantasy, fantasy is its own reward. You go there to feel good about yourself because reality is so intense, right? It's got to go. You've got to stand in reality. Each thought you think is either about lack or about fullness. Or it's about the lack of money as opposed to just being about money. This requires for you to tell the difference. A great deal of awareness and intention to see all the ways you're sabotaging yourself by thinking about the lack of money. That's an investment of your energy, just as you thinking about money is an investment of your energy. Don't you understand? And what you invest in energetically is what you're going to get. That's the way energy works. That's the law of attraction. Okay? If you do nothing but stay in your room and never see people and never date and look at porn all day, guess what you're going to have? You're going to have a life without any relationships in it, except the computer and porn. Don't you understand? What you invest in energetically is what you get. Some dear friends of mine, clients, finally moved on joining online dating. And I said to them, this isn't about finding someone. It is about saying to the universe, because they were a little discouraged about who they saw. And I said, this is about saying to the universe that you want to date. You want a partner. You need some practice. That's what it's about first, right? Okay, so you have to move in this direction. And you have to be willing to change, right? Okay. So cleaning up the way you think about money does require a lot of thinking and awareness and intention because, hello, Michelle. Oh, I'm so glad that you're with us today. It's wonderful. Okay. You've got to change your momentum and the mentality that you have from the lack of abundance to abundance. From the lack of money to just money. Now, there are hidden issues here. I need for you to know that. How did your family think about money? Now, it's not just your family. It's how did your mother do it? How did your dad do it? These are your greatest influences. When a parent is missing, Now, here's something really interesting about human nature. We have a fantasy about what he or she would have done, would have felt, would have thought. So even if your dad died when you were 2, you have an idea about how your dad thought about that. Isn't that interesting? We put together a dad for ourselves in the early days. So you have to know how your mother, how your father thought about money. Was it a burden or was it a pleasure? Was it respected or not? How did they disrespect it? How did they respect it? Did your mother or father ever think about money just for money? Or did they worry about the lack of it? Did they have it and lose it? Did they never have it? Did they have it and keep it? Were they selfish and ungenerous and unkind? Did you link that with money? Do you think that all rich people are terrible people? Do you think that all poor people are terrible people? You see, because the whole world thinks both of those things, neither one of them is true, and yet they are because somebody believes it, right? We have to transcend. Hello, Kat. I'm so glad that you're with us today. I always look forward to hearing from you. We have to transcend these things, guys. What is the truth in the ascended God, which is the aspect of God that you are? And it's above these egoic issues about money and about the lack of money. Please do not think you haven't inherited these issues about money. You have. They're in there. And you simply have to find them. And if you don't, what happens is they sabotage you in the world. And you're doing certain things to make up for the imbalances, like fantasizing. If you are depriving yourself and being harsh to yourself and not realizing what you're doing, you're fantasizing about how great life is if you just had this and had that, and you're going to do it, but you don't have a practical plan to get there. You see? We've got to live in reality to do this well. Now, here's something else. Now, first of all, let me say to that last point, what I want to say is, guys, I'm not here to say you have issues. I know that's what you're hearing, but I want you to know I'm saying we all have issues and we can resolve them and go past them and go on into the unknown, because the unknown is not the scary place the ego child's mind tries to show you it is. It is where everything you want is. That's what's there. Deeper love, abundance, a different mentality about the world. You know, I go back to that marvelous proverb, I guess is what it is, which is before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. What that implies is you are fundamentally changed. There's a difference between the ego child's mind, chopping wood and carrying water, and the highest self, chopping wood and carrying water. What a privilege. What a magnificent, awesome experience. The reality of God is in everything. And it's yours. But for a change of how we live, from the ego child's mind fear-based experience to the higher self love-based experience, from the mentality of lack to the mentality of joy and abundance and privilege and generosity and fun and love. Okay. Now, point number 3. I am well aware we have 100 points in each point, so stick with me as best you can, write as fast as you can, and guys, go back and listen to this absolutely, because it's going to be posted always on the archival Blog Talk Radio, on the archival Facebook Live, and on YouTube. These things, as long as the technology holds, and it seems to be holding today, thank God, it will transfer to YouTube. All right. Point number 3. Everything is made of energy. Now, I think this is an important point. Everything is energy. The pebble in the yard that looks inanimate, if you put it under a microscope, the molecules are all moving around. Nothing's inanimate the way we intend it to be. It's a perception, right? Everything is energy. The dog at the door is energy. What you eat is energy. The thoughts you think, the feelings you have, the love you give, it's all energy. The stove is energy. The chair is energy. Everything's energy. There isn't anything in this world that isn't energy. And energy, in my book, and what I want to put on the table for you, is the love of God manifesting in this world in high frequencies or in lower frequencies. Now, what do I mean by that? Those of you who have listened to me, hang on, I got to say it again. And those of you that are new, I need to put it on the table for you. One of the confusing things about God is this. God manifests 2 ways, and here's the big sentence: according to our understanding, according to our perception, God manifests 2 ways. One way is through the egoic child's mind experience, and that's the part of us that thinks like a child. It's fear-based, it's dependent, it believes in lack, okay? And then the other way it manifests according to our perceptions is in the fullness of God. This is the highest self. This is the love-based experience, the fullness of God, the abundance, all right? Now, our spiritual growth is going from the egoic child's mind to the more enlightened mind, which is the highest self mind, all right? God is not, the energy of God does not come down and meet us in the egoic child's mind and every day being Christmas. We're supposed to evolve and merge our minds with a higher mind. And then we work the energy real well. We are beyond these old egoic child's mind issues and the issues we inherited. We understand them, but we have moved past them to decide who we really are and what we really want to believe. It's very deliberate, it's very intentional, and it's very conscious. If we go far enough, we call that enlightenment, okay? All right. Everything is energy. Now, what I want you to know about this is that means money is energy. And if money is energy, money is just one of the ways that God loves you, because God loves you through all the energies available to you on the planet, including who you are. We can accept it or not accept it. And many of us are listening to the show because we don't accept that money is the love of God. Well, you appreciate the sunset that's out there or the sunrise. You appreciate that and think how beautiful, how wonderful. You appreciate your friends when they tell you that they love you and care for you and they give you birthday gifts. You accept that. You accept that your car runs in the morning. That's God's love for you. And if it doesn't run, it doesn't mean God doesn't love you. It means there's something to look at. Okay? It just means something to correct. We accept the love of God in all its forms. If we're lucky enough to have a partner, we accept the love of God through those wonderful times that we might have with our partner. But you won't accept money. Whoa. It's just the love of God. It's just one of the ways God loves you. It's just one of the ways to give you pleasure, to enjoy the world. And you do need it. All right. God is loving us not only through the money and what it can buy, but through our ability to make it. But many of us don't let it in. And we're going to talk about this in more detail, but let's just talk about it on the surface right now. Why is it that you are blocking money when you are accepting the love of God in so many other ways? You have to ask yourself that. It's all to do with issues. We have more than the New York Times, but we don't know it, and that's the problem. Because if we can unearth these things, if we can know these things, we can do something about it. We can decide quite deliberately, intentionally, and consciously that we don't need to believe that anymore, that we can believe something else. And that's an extremely important thing. I think there are two words that are enormously important to our development as spiritual beings in physical form. And one is deliberate. Is it deliberate? Are you deliberately making this choice? And of course, one's cooperation, that you're making a cooperative choice with the highest self, not with the ego child's mind that says, I want what I want when I want it, and I want it how I want it, and I want it when I want it. What? Isn't going to work that way. So all of these issues can be resolved. They can be unearthed, resolved, and transcended. Isn't that interesting? But you're not going to transcend them until you know what they are, because why? You're supposed to be conscious of this. You're supposed to know more, and being conscious means knowing more today than you did yesterday. You see? That's all consciousness is, and you keep going with that. So if you think that this is about not knowing something and just being there, we'll call it fantasy. We're supposed to learn and grow, and there are opportunities in that. In my opinion, you can only do this to a limited amount, in a limited fashion on your own. All the meditation and reading and workshops are going to help you really marginally, in my opinion, because the ego child's mind is sending up propaganda in all of us that says, don't do this, don't do that, limit yourself here, don't do that, you might hurt, you might get in trouble, you might be harmed, you might be killed. Deep down in the ego child's mind, we don't really want to change. We don't really want to grow. We'll sacrifice the opportunities just to keep safe. You understand? Just to protect ourselves. And all that's got to go, because you are safe. What you're not doing is you don't have a perception that you are. You still are working in the old perception that you're not, and that you need to protect yourself, but you're alive, you're well, you're smart. You have the ego child's mind, yes, but you have so much more than that. If I ask you, are you just your fear? There's not one of you who would say, yes, that's me, I'm just my fear. Because you know there's more. Well, I'm saying that in consciousness work, and for you, even now, before you ever have consciousness work, you better start exploring what you got. You better start putting more energy into that. Because you aren't just your fear. You wouldn't even be listening to a show like this if you were just your fear. But we all have fear that we need to overcome, from the ego child's mind to the highest self. That's the joyous journey. That's the journey that's going to get us somewhere. What you want, I guarantee, is beyond the egoic child's mind. It's in a different arena. And if you are going to go and find a coach, a consciousness coach, I want you to find someone who knows the ropes and who will push you, and also know when to back off as well. Someone who will tell you the larger truths of what you're doing, and someone who cares about you enough to help you get through it and go on to the new order for a better life. All of us are in the process of learning to accept the love of God through money. Every one of us. You're not unique. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just part of the journey. Because, and the reason I say all of us, because how much money is enough? You see? You always want more, right? Okay. Point number 4. What is that timeline? Good. This is another important point. Every money issue is not a money issue. Shocking? Every money issue is an energy issue. In other words, if more money goes out than comes in, this is reflective of what your energy is doing. There's an imbalance here, and you've got to find it and correct it in order for you to have more money. It's an energy issue. I've known a lot of clients in my time that leak energy. They'll do things they don't want to do, and then they're too tired to do the things that are in their best interest. They put themselves into terrible living situations or in terrible working situations. There's something great distractions from themselves, right? They will give too much away, and then they don't have energy on the weekend to create something that is uniquely theirs. They just collapse and get ready to do it all over again on Monday. You have to learn to have balance in your life energetically. And to do that, you've got to learn all the ways you're sabotaging yourself because they reflect what you're doing with money. Okay, now I have a great exercise for this. I want you to keep a small notebook and keep this notebook dedicated just to this exercise. Carry it everywhere with you, and here's the exercise. I want you to record every single penny and dollar you spend in that notebook. Make a commitment to do it for 3 solid weeks, if not longer. I want you to record the 25-cent pack of gum. Is that what they cost now? I don't even know. I want you to record the $20,000 car that you buy. I want you to record each grocery item, not the grocery bill, the pet food, each one, the hair appointment, the massage. I want you to record every single thing, the gas that you spend at the gas tank, at the gas station. Nothing goes unaccounted for. Now, you talk about a deliberate exercise and a conscious one. This is it concerning money, all right? Now, let's talk about what should happen in this exercise, because the most amazing thing happens. You start making more informed decisions. You remember how we said in the beginning, you're not thinking about money. If you don't have it, you're not thinking about it. Just money. Not the lack of it, not the abundance of it, not the fantasy of it, by the way, the fantasy of having everything and the fantasy of going to the poorhouse are all the same issues. They're all fantasy. You understand? That's what's going on. Well, how about just thinking about money? Just thinking about money. We'll just record what you're spending. I'm saying record it without any emotion attached to it. Now, what's going to happen is after a week or 2, you're going to go, oh my God, I've got to make more informed decisions about money. I see what I'm spending money on. You'll say no to the Starbucks cup of coffee that you're perfectly capable of making for yourself at home because it's part of the beach house that you're generating right now. Okay, but you don't ever think about these things. Spending money is very unconscious for you. It's like overeating, you know. I've noticed for years with overeaters, they just eat. If something's in front of them, they'll eat. They're not hungry. They don't particularly want the taste. It could be, you know, a half-rotten piece of fruit. They're still eating it. It has to be conscious. It has to be deliberate. You need to think and take it out of the unconscious realm. You need to think about how you're spending your money. Now, whether you buy the Starbucks cup of coffee or not is not the point of this exercise. The point is, it needs to be a conscious and deliberate decision to do so or not. And you need to be accountable to you. It's a very grown-up exercise, isn't it? Because if you are spending unwisely, if you're spending, you may not want to do this exercise. I'm saying grow up. If you want more money, you're going to have to grow up. When you have money problems, you're experiencing a lot of life in the unconscious rote state. We're not really happy in that state. We repeat the same patterns in this state. And because we do, we have to either numb ourselves with drugs, alcohol, fantasy. We'll go into manic behaviors of all kinds. We'll go into impulsivity, like rushing relationships, or we'll go into loneliness and longing, which is just fantasy. Oh, come on, guys. Reality is better than any of this. Real life really is. But sometimes that's the issue that we need to address. One of them. We need to be very comfortable with reality. And we have to find that out for ourselves, that we're safe here. And that it's all going to be fine. And the energy works the way I'm saying it works. It does. So, my point, to correct a money issue, you have to find out where your energy is going. Now, I want to step out of money for just a minute, and I want to give you a side note to help you understand what I mean by this. We should all drop the word lazy from your vocabulary. Lazy. You are not lazy, nor is the person lazy that you want to motivate to do something. Lazy is one of those awful words that, by the way, number one, doesn't mean anything. And number two, implies some sort of moralistic judgment. Here's what it really means. In the case of someone else, you want to control what they're doing and they are not complying. Most of the time, we should be transcending our control issues and realize that everybody has a right to live and die the way they choose. I wouldn't want anybody interfering with my right to do that, and you wouldn't want anybody interfering with your right to do that, and yet we'll criticize our sons and daughters or our fathers or our friends for being lazy. Okay. Energetically, there is no such word. What you are seeing in them and in you, if you're calling yourself lazy, is that you see a direction that you are going that is not compatible, not in cooperation with the direction that you want to go or you think you should be going, or they should. What I want you to understand about this word, because this has every implication for money, is that there's a good reason that there or you are not going in the direction you want to go. And it isn't because you're lazy. It is an egoic child's mind reason or reasons. There are issues around this, grant you. But there is a good reason for it, nevertheless. It can be resolved and released, and then you can continue along the path you desire. And you can then relax and stop beating yourself up or beating someone else up, because we all have the choice to either release these things and go on past them or not. You cannot, though, force yourself or force them. Now, I want you to write this down. No one responds to force but children, i.e. the egoic child's mind. All right? And even then, force will create three things, actually. The first thing, it will make the person who is being forced dependent on the forcer. Dependent is the child's mind. Dependent doesn't get you to your authentic self. And number two, it makes the person defiant to the force. Or number three, it creates both a dependence and a defiance to the force. When we grow up and we have had parents that forced us or love to be forced themselves, we grew up thinking that we need that, and yet we are defiant about it. We are resentful of it. At the same time, we think we need it because we're a child. You see, it's unnatural to remain a child in our adulthood, isn't it? It's unnatural. What's natural is growing and evolving into who we really are without a story in this moment. What are you going to do with it? You're going to learn something, you're going to create something, you're going to have a divine inspirational idea, or you're going to be open to one. What are you going to do with this moment? This literal moment. Mindfulness at its best, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Point number 5. So that last point, point number 4, was that money issues are energy issues. Point number 5. You've got to get over your discomfort of any kind with money, and also discomfort with money or the lack of it. Boy, this is a mind-blowing concept to the ego, right? The ego child's mind. But let's talk about this in detail, because there are, again, a lot of points within this point. I talked to a woman the other day who said when her husband tried to express his concerns and fears over his ability to make money, she shut him down. It scared her, she said. She avoided subjects that scared her. So she, in essence, told him to handle it alone, and that something was wrong with him if he couldn't handle it alone, and to leave her out of it. She never wanted to hear about this again. Wow. I was really shocked by this particular thing, because it is enormously unloving and unkind, and this person seemed to miss the point of what she should do. It was on the table for her to grow up, to get comfortable with money and the lack of money, to get comfortable with everything and to love more, and to be able to stand there, right? And discuss like an adult. Whoa. In my opinion, one of the greatest things about partnership is that there are 4 shoulders to carry the worries on instead of 2. I don't believe in carrying those worries very long, but I do believe in sharing that and talking about it and helping each other move past those things. I don't think anything should be off the table to discuss. If we have a problem, if one of us as a partner has a problem, it's everybody's problem until we resolve that. And she wonders why her husband doesn't trust her and doesn't feel safe with her. She feels close to him through fantasy. Oh, he's a god. That's falling apart, by the way. But fantasy is her only venue for closeness, because she shut down the natural ones. Don't you understand? I've helped animals for years. I'm a real big animal rescuer. I've noticed the animals that I'm closest to are the ones that have needed some help. There's a level of understanding that develops through the years as they age, as they have a little tummy ache or something through the years, and you help them through that. There is a depth that is natural and good, doors open, deeper level of trust takes its place. I say, concerning this, you trust God when your idea of God grows up. And this is the God whose aspect you are. I'll also say you trust yourself when your idea of you grows up. And that means that you grow past who you think you are, or who you're afraid that you might be, or all those other things that we do in the ego child's mind. You grow into your authentic self. And you trust money when your idea of money goes up. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, concerning this point, I want to give you another image. Let's say you are an incredible river. There's nothing in the river. It's just a free-flowing river. All right? It's deep, it's powerful, it's marvelous in its mightiness. And you've got two mountains on each side of the river. Through the years, granite or whatever the boulders are, roll down each of these mountains, and there's a boulder here and there's a boulder there. So the river starts being distorted. The power of the river, little tributaries start forming and running off in various directions. The river downstream is not as powerful as it once was. Now, what are these boulders? Well, here's one coming down, and that is the fear. Now remember, we're just thinking energy here. It's the fear of being rich. Oh, well, you want me to remove that. I know you do, because the ego child's mind says, well, if you remove the fear of being rich, I'll be rich. Well, it certainly helps removing that. But there's a bigger boulder here, which is the fear of being poor. And you don't want me to touch that, because the ego child's mind says, if you remove that fear, I'll be poor. No, it's energy, and it's blocking the power of the river. We want to remove the fear of being poor, because then you've got huge flow. Now, the fear of being rich, the fear of being poor, let me tell you, you got infinite number of issues under each of those topics. I urge you to look at them. I urge you, if you can't dispense them yourself, and you usually can't, that you get somebody to help you transcend those things and resolve those things in you. Because both of them are blocking the flow that belongs to you. You understand? Good. You have to remove the blocks, negative and positive, so the river can flow. This is where you're free. This is where you don't worry anymore. This is where you know God has you. This is where you know you can generate income. Point number 6. Learn to genuinely be happy for other people's good fortunes. Now, in this is the real point. Learn to be enormously generous. I'm always interested, simply by way of observation, that people who are in the egoic child's mind are self-absorbed and never think of anybody but themselves, except in a small way. This is everybody, by the way. Here's an example. I generally fix small breakfasts for my first clients. One of the reasons is that I don't get to eat because I don't get up early enough to fix my breakfast before my first client gets here. So we share a meal together, usually while we're having the session, you know, a small piece of toast or some fruit or something like that. If I'm really motivated, some eggs and something like that. I have good tea and coffee all day long for people, for anybody who wants it, including me. So, you know, that station is always open. All right. But it's always a surprise and a little shocking how many people never think to bring a little box of tea once in a while, or a roll, or a few pieces of fruit, and add to this. And they'll and if we talk about it at all, which we usually don't, they'll say, but I just can't afford it. You can afford things. I'm sorry, that's not true. You certainly can. You just don't think of it because it's all about you. Now, by the way, this is the universal you, not necessarily you. But if you recognize you in this, I want you to do something about it. It's also fascinating to me to see as people raise their vibration and come out of the ego child's mind and start playing in the arena of the highest self, they become generous and do for others. All of a sudden, at the tea station, I see teas that I didn't buy. And what's so interesting is these people don't even care about having any thanks anymore. They just add to the stash. It's lovely. It's wonderful. People at their natures, at your authentic self, are generous. So my point is, it's important to be happy for others. It's important to be grateful. It's important to increase flow. And flow is not holding on to things. Flow is generously giving when you have it to give. And we all do have it to give. We can bring a tea bag or two, can't we, of a new tea we've tried. Even if you don't want to bring the box. We can give what we can. I noticed years ago that when my mother died, and that was a big thing for me because I was real close to my mom, all my friends jumped in and gave what they could. Some people helped to organize my schedule. Some people brought things I enjoyed, like pistachio ice cream, which, by the way, I don't eat anymore, but it certainly comforted me while that was going on. Some people cut the grass to the house where we had the wake and planted some flowers, so it would be pretty. We all give the way we can, according to our sensibilities and what is important to us, you know. That opens flow. We can talk about other things that open flow, like point 7. Gratitude opens flow. Now, there are other shows that I've done on gratitude, and I do suggest you listen to them, but here's the nugget. Gratitude opens surrender. In other words, you're surrendering your egoic child's mind self. You're saying there was something other than me at work here. God, I think, is behind even the generosity of people, by the way. Something else was going on. We're grateful to whatever it is, even if we can't call it by name. And when we are surrendered like that, it moves past the egoic child's mind and the closed system. We become the open system, at least for those few minutes of gratitude. And guys, that opens flow. You have to be in the open system. Do you know what I mean by the open system and the closed system? The closed system is a system where there's not much interaction with the environment, so not much can happen to it. The open system is something that has a great deal of interaction with the environment, so a lot of can happen to it. And you say, oh, I don't want that much to happen to it. Yeah, that's the problem with the egoic child's mind. You see, we don't realize that we've got discernment in God, and we can say, no, not so much, don't want to do that. Thank you so much for the invitation. No, we have the choice, but you want the system to be open. You want to have those choices and make very good ones. Sometimes you have to learn to make good ones. Well, if you doubt that you can make good choices, you've got to learn. I know I had to learn. I didn't make good choices when I was younger either. I didn't know who I was and what I thought. Until you do, you don't make good choices. So let's put the attention where it is due. We've got to learn to grow. We've got to be okay with that, you see. Point number 8. How am I doing with my time? Okay. Making money, by the way, is not about your educational level or whether you've inherited it or whether you have good luck or bad. It isn't about that. It's about being open to divine inspiration. It's about then adding service. It is about then keeping yourself in the equation. In other words, I do this is absolutely coming through me, and I want to give, and I want to take. It is a loop, you see? We give, we receive. We give, we receive. We give, we receive. That's the way it works. We need to open our minds to continue to add value and be of service. And we need to change with the times, adapting to the new, moving mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and always learning. Now, if you are doing those things, you should be very successful. While many people are praying and doing all sorts of rituals in order to make money, it doesn't work for 2 very important reasons. Number 1, prayer and ritual that is generated from lack doesn't bring you anything but lack. And number 2, many times these rituals have no thought connected to them about how to add value to the world. A much more important prayer is, open me, dear God. Dear God of all there is, to the creative ideas that I can add to this world for value. Show me who I really am, and translate that into service. That all service may give and receive and make me a full participant in this world. Now there's a prayer that I think will generate something more. If you're not comfortable with the words being of service, and many people aren't in the egoic child's mind, there's more work to be done. It shows a lack mentality. It shows a deprivation where you feel you have to grasp for more. That's not true. You know, look at the world, guys, right now. You read about elephants in Thailand that are painting pictures and generating money. You read about chimpanzees that are doing art. You read about people that make money in all sorts of creative ways. It's hard to think about money and change your mentality. It isn't hard to make it. Look at all the people that don't have talent, that are famous. I pick up these magazines and I go, who are these people? Sorry, that sounds like my mother, but it's true. Who are these people? And then I see what they do and I go, maybe not so much. But my next thought is, well, good for them. Good for them. I applaud them. That's great. Well, if them, why not you? Come on. There's nothing stopping you but you and the thoughts you're thinking about all this. You see? You are one idea away for millions of dollars. What idea? A series maybe of ideas. But if you're looking at that $1 million, instead of being of service and those ideas, you're not making any room at all for divine inspiration to come. And the creative element in you that you were born with and did not learn can be used. You're not letting it be used. It's like you've got this great tool in your toolbox and you're not picking it up, right? You are wired to pick it up. Now get out of the way. And what's in the way? Issues, the ego child's mind, saying no. Ladies and gentlemen, you really can't manifest money, but I'll tell you what you can manifest, the ideas that create it. That's what you can manifest. Hello, Yvonne. I'm glad that you're here. Does that make sense? You can't manifest money. Money doesn't have anything, it doesn't have any oomph to it. You can manifest the ideas that make money. That has the oomph. Point number 9, and I referred to this once before, but I think it's an important point. You've got to learn to live in reality, not fantasy. Fantasy is its own reward. But sometimes it is so habitual, and in its habitualness, it is insidious, and we don't even realize it's fantasy. But fantasy is its own reward. You cannot, will not, it will never happen, create out of fantasy. Fantasy is a place of lack. You go there to feel better because you're in lack mentality. It's got to be shattered. What takes its place? Planning, step by step, but not marrying those plans. Again, you've got to be willing to change, to adapt. There are going to be mistakes that are made. Learn from your mistakes. I did I think a radio show on mistakes, and they said that for every 10 decisions that are made, 3 or 4 of them are usually mistakes or half mistakes. Why isn't that all right? If you learn from them, they're not mistakes in my book. You see? Don't be afraid of mistakes. They're humanness. And you've got to just start moving. Being afraid of making your mistakes is truly something out of the ego child's mind. Nobody's here to punish you. You're just going to learn, and you're going to correct it next time. So let's say, you start a business and you hire an employee that takes advantage of you. You're going to have it in the contract that they're not going to do that the next time, right? And you let them go and you hire somebody else. There are ways to do good business. Or you certainly try to correct them, by the way, first. And if they won't be corrected, you move on. All right. Point number 10. Don't sell yourself short. What do you do well? Are you a good problem solver? Are you good at making people feel good? Are you good at creative thought and ideas that are bouncing around all the time? What do you do well? Do you have a tendency to love sports? Would you never enter a stadium and you like to go to solitary creative pursuits instead, or teamwork? What do you like? What are those things that are in you? And if you don't know at this point in your life, there's probably a slight depression going on. You can't see what you like. So go back to when you were 13 years old, 14 years old, and you had all that budding energy. What'd you like then? What were your favorite subjects? Those are the things you ought to go back and develop and see what you can do with them. Don't sell yourself short. Find out what you can do. You want to use your talents, gifts, and abilities. Those talents, gifts, and abilities were put there for a reason. And the irony is, the more you use of them, the more fulfilled you will be. Point number 11. Keep manifestation going. Once you're in this mindset, I see a lot of people stopping it. One of the ways they stop it is they start giving their attention to what they've manifested instead of to the source of generation, which is you being in the right mindset. I have a friend of mine who went to Hollywood and did quite well. He was naive, he was adorable, he was funny, he was darling, okay, in many different ways. And then I saw him a couple of years later, and he looked completely different. He was quite desperate. He had been in some major movies, but now he was having a hard time generating anything. And I said, what happened? Knowing what happened. And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, you know, you're just an actor like all the other actors that want a job out here. You're not producing anything. You're not giving anything. You don't realize that you're the source of it all. And the interesting thing was, all of a sudden he woke up and he went, I've been having this feeling that I should write a screenplay. I said, then write it. He sold that screenplay, by the way, which is unheard of for a new writer. You can't slip out of this mentality. You're either cooperative with God and going with that, or not. And you have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to flow with it as God opens and shuts the doors. You are the one that's doing it, after all. It's trying to take you somewhere you might not know about, but it's going to be great. You know, I have a lot of people that say, oh, I can't go with God. It's going to take me somewhere I don't want to go. Guys, that's old thinking. God is the aspect that you are. It's going to go with the talents and gifts and abilities and expand them. Okay? It may not match the ego child's mind. In fact, I guarantee you it won't. But you will be happier because there are some things you don't yet know about yourself. So let all that evolve. That's the exciting thing. And point number 12 is your value. You have two of them. You have a worldly value based on your time and possibly some of your energy. And you have a spiritual value that is priceless. One of the things that's very hard for people is to set a price for their time and energy, for their worldly value. And sometimes we can get very misguided about this. I know one of my artist clients spends way too much time doctoring her beautiful, beautiful photography. And we talked about this when she had a show, because she was putting these exorbitant prices on these things. And she said, well, I gave this much time to creating this beautiful thing. And I said, the problem is nobody is going to pay that. Nobody knows you. This is photography. No, nobody's going to do that. You have to control your time and give the appropriate amount of time to the project so you can put an appropriate price tag on it until you become Andy Warhol, at which time you can charge more inflated prices. You have to be realistic. Again, I come back, pardon me, darlings, to realism. We have to be realistic, okay, about what the market will bear, about what other people are charging, about what we have to give. Important. Ladies and gentlemen, I do believe in the potential of human beings. Every show is about that. Every single show I give, all my work is about getting people from the egoic child's mind to the highest self, where you live your potential more and more and more in the arenas of your excellence when you're in the higher mind. Add value to this world. This world needs it. You're going to be well rewarded for it, but you can't do it for the reward. That's the irony. But here's the thing about the chaos that we're all in right now. Chaos is the most creative time you've got. It's where everything is changing. It's where things are opening up. But you can't look back and say, why did my job go away? Oh, poor me. Oh, I wish it was the same. I want to create the same thing I had. No, you can't. You can't go home again, as the expression goes. You have to listen. You have to be willing to invent yourself anew. And reinventing yourself is marvelous over and over and over again. Actors learn to do this. Some actors don't, by the way, but the best actors do and go with. And we're all in this divine improvisation called life. Don't be afraid to reinvent. Don't be afraid to change things. You see, if you don't change things, and I'm almost finished here, I truly am, your script is already written. Your script is already written. I'm not talking about predestination here. I'm talking about if you still do the same patterns over and over again that you learned as the ego child's mind, if you continue to repeat those patterns, well, the end is already written to that script. You're going to be disappointed. You're not going to get what you want. Love's going to go away. You're not going to be wealthy. You're not going to have enough money. So we have to write a new script for a little while, until all of a sudden, it's not about any story. Next step is a more positive story. The following step is no story at all. Is all this momentum so alive because there is a living God in you, that it's about this moment and what you're creating and what you're learning and what you're giving and what you're inspired to do right here, right now. All that and more you're capable of. Don't be telling me it's too late. Don't be telling me you're too old. Don't be telling me you don't feel well enough. Don't be telling me any of that. They're just excuses. I understand them. I'm really the queen of them. Okay? But I certainly do try to challenge any one of them that comes up these days, because there's more to do. We have a call, and we have 7 more minutes on the air. So if you will let me, I'll pray for you in a little while. Maybe when we get off the air, I could go to this phone call. So let's go there. Let's see if we can bring this person in. Whoops, it dropped. Okay, it was a 929 exchange. So what I'll do instead is pray for us. Are you ready? Here we go. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, thank you so much for all of us being together and putting our minds together. Because just as you said, when 2 or more are gathered in your name, right? Well, there's more energy in a call like this, and the people that are listening to this, and all of us are in the energy of knowing more about you, of opening more to you and all your abundance. We're all on this journey from fear to fullness and love. It's an exciting time in the world. And right now, we open ourselves to all the grace and inspiration, and by the way, discernment and evolution that we are supposed to have. We accept our humanness and all those little things we have so judged about ourselves, and we say, you know what, they're all right. They're part of my humanness. And that's the place to accept, so that the divine and will open in that. This is the irony of life, isn't it? This is the esoteric journey, that the things we're looking for are oftentimes in the things we're most afraid of. Divinity is in our humanness. Abundance is in our fear of lack. Life is very, very good. And it's complicated, and it's easy. Through the complications, you'll find the ease. Dear God, we open to that now, and we say we open ourselves to the next level of our journey. Show us what we must do. Let us act on it and not just think about it. Show us our fantasy. Let us surrender it, that we may move mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and be cooperative and intentional and deliberate in you. And these things we are so grateful for, and that they're all possible. And we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of every single person listening to the show today. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with us. Guys, you can do me a huge favor, and that is, but I'm delighted to do these shows for you, but please get the word around about us. I know social media is just incredible these days, so if you'll like us and follow us and share us, that's just wonderful. I know I believe on Blog Talk Radio, you can take individual shows and send them to all your friends and to your mailing list, and we would appreciate your doing that so much. Just getting the word around about us will really help us. By the way, if you go to my website, which is marthanovak.com, Novak, there are all sorts of offerings there. I've got a book, 2 books out that are marvelous. There's an app that you can have on your phone with a daily reminder of something that you need to think about. Works as an oracle of sorts. I have to tell you a funny story about that if I have time. So when I first wrote the Teacup Prophecies, that's what this oracle is called, it was sitting on my coffee table because you can get it as a book or as this app, right? And my husband was staying up far too late and watching some sort of show on television, murder mystery or something. And he looked at me and he said, "Why am I sitting here?" And I handed him the book and I said, "I don't know, see what God has to say about it." And he opened the book and it was to the quote, "When is enough enough? When is it over?" or something to that end. Well, that's how this oracle works, guys. It's something for you to contemplate. Very important in the day, okay? Thank you for listening. It means the world to me. We'll be back next week with another show. Don't know what yet, but it'll be something that has to do with our daily lives. And thank you so much for being such a big part of all this. I love hearing from every single one of you. Thank you. And you can write me if you'd like through the website and suggest shows too. And I'm always delighted to hear about that. Thank you so much. Have a good day and have a good week. Remember that God loves you through you, okay?
90 seconds.
It's an important thing to wake up to, how you treat yourself. And that's what I mean by that statement. God loves you through you. Take care now. Bye-bye.